Chapter 21, Learning Magic Part 1. So why did you want to see me here? I asked Mom, who sat beside me with a few books. I'm going to teach you how to use magic, she said and flipped through one of the books. I know you would do it on your own, so I'm going to use the opportunity to teach you myself. Okay, then, when do we begin? I asked, excited to learn something new. Now, was her simple answer before she closed the book and started explaining magic. Let's start with the 4 main magic types: elemental magic, spiritual magic, holy magic, and summoning magic. Main types, so what are the others? I asked. There are also other types of magic, such as engraving magic, illusion magic, and necromancy, but you will be learning that later, she explained, and I got excited at the idea of learning illusion or even engraving magic. Magic is the embodiment of an idea that produces some effect in accordance with a specified law. Let's first start with elemental magic. It operates by controlling the surrounding magi calls to bend the laws of nature, using the caster's mental power and incantations as a medium. On the other hand, if a monster is using elemental magic, the magi calls in its body may be used to activate the effect without delay from gathering atmospheric magi calls. It somehow reminds me of the other novel I started reading but never got the chance to finish. What was its name? Mushoku Tensei, I think. But you need to remember that the created phenomena are unaffected by other physical factors. So, for example, the magical fire wouldn't be extinguished by ordinary water. She continued to explain. That's good to know, I said, thinking I would probably try something like that if I didn't know it. But in my defense, I wouldn't know better, so what other types of elemental magic exist? I asked, as my mind was currently stuck on the 4 basic elements. There are around 30 types I know of that are categorized as elemental magic, and while we still don't know what type you have the best affinity with, we should start with a simple fire spell. While you need knowledge and practice to perform magic, that isn't hard. The biggest problem is the use of magi calls, she said, looking at me. While harder to learn, someone can learn to use external magi calls for magic, but that won't be a problem for you, right? She asked with a smirk. She knows, Yeah, sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I apologized awkwardly. There is no need. I have known about it ever since the first time I saw you in the library using thought acceleration, she said, and I was slightly shocked that she knew. You weren't even trying to hide it. So, could we start with the magic stuff? I asked, trying not to talk about it more. Are you sure you don't want to tell me why you wanted to hide that from me? She asked. I didn't answer. Wow, sometimes you can be so boring. She joked before getting serious, but let's not waste time. We can start with fire magic. She started explaining fire magic, explaining different spells and how they work. There are different ways to activate a spell. The first one I saw used when we arrived in the Empire was with a chant. Then someone can also activate the spell by just using its name. Then if you have the chant annulment skill, it eliminates the need for chanting when using magic after a spell is analyzed or successfully cast. The spell is stored in the user's mind and available to be cast just by thinking about its activation. Now you can try, she said. I brought my hand forward and closed my eyes, imagining a disposable lighter. I had the image of the spark wheel rotating against the flint and igniting the gas. Fire, I said and opened my eyes to see a small palm-sized ball of fire. I imagined my eyes had stars in them, seeing the small fire floating just above my hands, and I started thinking. This fire is made out of my own magi calls, so they shouldn't be able to hurt me, right? Could I use ignite my whole arm? Why do I feel like I should scold you right now? Mom asked with her right eye twitching slightly. It's just your imagination, I said, mentally sweating bullets. She didn't say anything, just looked at me for what felt like an eternity before she let out a sigh. Let's proceed with the next spell. I breathed a sigh of relief. Oh, and if you ever think of something stupid like setting yourself on fire, I will lock you in your room for a year. What? I didn't think of anything like that. Shit, is this what people call mother's instincts? She continued teaching me other fire spells like fire lance, fireball, firewall, firestorm. Yeah, just lots of spells with fire in their name. But in theory, I should be able to cast the exact same spells, just with different elements. But could I use a simple fireball and crank up the heat to make it more destructive? Without a second thought, I cast the simple fire spell skipping the chant due to my skill and started pumping it with more magi calls. The flame started to change color from red to deep orange, then to a more whitish until it became dazzling white. I wanted to try to get them even hotter, but I got hit with a paper fan. Hey, what was that for? I asked. What are you doing in a small room like this? Mom started scolding me for doing it inside. Do you know the damage you could cause if the spell became unstable? I don't believe that it is my fault you decided to teach me magic here. Maybe I could have used my brain and done it elsewhere, but it's still partially your fault. Chapter 22, Learning Magic Part 2. I dodged an incoming attack and looked at Mom, who hit the air with her paper fan. Oh, so now you are dodging, she said, and an evil smirk formed on her face as magi calls flooded into the fan, reinforcing it. Lesson 2, Enhancement Magic, she said and dashed towards me. I started to run and dodge her reinforced swings. Why are you even doing this? I shouted, rolling under the table. You were blaming me for your stupidity, she shouted back, so don't avoid your punishment. No, I didn't. Maybe I did, but I never said it out loud. I dodged again, but the fan hit a chair I was close to. The chair split in two. Now I was terrified. Is she trying to kill me? You have nowhere to run now, so take your punishment, she said as I was stuck in a corner. In an instant, I was hit with the reinforced paper fan, making me stumble a bit. But it wasn't that bad. I expected it to be worse. Oh, so you can take more? She asked with a smile, and I got hit once more, but this time with more force. So now that you learned your lesson, let's continue, she said and cleared her throat. I got hit with a fan for 5 minutes straight, and she just returned to normal like it never happened. It wasn't even like it hurt me, but still, it was annoying. You want me to use a flipper next? She asked, giving me a glare with a slipper in her hand. No, I answered instantly, but then I tilted my head in confusion. Where did you even get that from? I asked. Creation magic. It is commonly utilized to create weapons and clothing as well as golems. I want that to learn that? Just imagining how easy everything would be if I could create them instead. For example, if creation magic can be used for creating weapons and clothing, could it be used to create food? Maybe if I analyzed the food, it could work, then I could make my favorite pastries every day. Our lesson continued with the other basic elements that I got down pretty easily before it was getting late, and I was forced back to my room to get a good night's sleep. Seriously, sometimes she treats me like a little kid. Wait, I'm technically a little kid. The next day we continued with the magic lesson, this time with other elements such as ice and lightning that weren't so hard for me. I also found out I have a great affinity towards shadow magic, with light magic being my second strongest affinity. But I struggled with flight magic. There wasn't a chant to memorize, and I didn't know how to visualize it correctly. I mostly thought of wind propelling or lowering gravity around me, even using fire to propel me upwards, but I couldn't imagine how to fly. I seriously learned spells from 3 different elements while trying to learn flight magic. I thought it over for what felt like hours while Mom was just looking at me, wanting me to figure it out myself. Maybe if I think of it as having invisible wings? I imagined translucent fallen angel wings sprouting from my back and lifting me into the air. For a moment, I wondered why I imagined fallen angel wings instead of regular angel wings, but didn't dwell on it as I spread magi calls around my whole body before muttering the spell's name, flight. I felt my feet lift from the ground, and when I opened my eyes, I was in the air. With the help of my imaginary wings, I was flying and going up, down, right, and left. This was fun, I chuckled, doing flips in the air. No, why did I teach him that? He's going to be doing this constantly. I heard Mom mutter while having a downcast look. What's wrong with having some fun while flying? I asked before hitting something. UPS. A slipper appeared in her hand, and I started dodging again, but this time in the air. Hey, it was an accident, stop trying to hit me with that thing. I shouted, but she didn't care. I was chased across the whole room again and somehow ended up in the same corner. Seriously, how did I make the same mistake twice? Mercy. Nope. I sat there rubbing my head, feeling a small bump. I prefer the paper fan over the slipper. A tick mark could be seen on Mom's forehead while looking at the broken chandelier behind me. Sometimes you could be worse than the stupid lizard, she sighed. Well, at least you somehow managed to learn other elements while trying to figure out flight magic. Quite impressive if I say so. Learning a few magic spells can't be impressive, I said, not finding it anything special. Oh, you would be wrong then, she said and smiled. It took me a whole day to cast a single spell while you did it in minutes. Oh, was the only thing I managed to say. I always knew my son was a genius. She looked proud for a moment, but it would be better if you didn't act like that lizard at times. Sue, what's the next spell? I asked to change the topic. She thought for a while before answering. There was one spell that doesn't have its own category but is still useful when traveling. Oh, that sounds interesting. What is the spell? I asked. The spell's name is auto mapping. It creates a map of the surrounding area in the caster's head. So basically, a minimap? If I knew this spell existed, I would have been the first thing I learned. I spent so much time getting lost and memorizing every part of the Underground Empire and the Church. Chapter 23, Leaving for a Dungeon. A whole month passed, and I made quick progress with my magic, learning around 15 different types of magic and even more spells in those specific categories of elemental magic. But there is something I want to do today. When I returned from my travels around the continent, I recalled all my shadows, leaving only one to use as fast travel. That left me with only the daily quest to get stronger, but upgrading my stats isn't the same as leveling up, if I would describe it simply. Then the level feels like a percentage boost to my stats. For example, as of right now, I'm level 13, so I would say that my stats have a 13% boost to them. But it could also just be my imagination, but I doubt it. I always love using this shadow exchange, I said, and my shadow shot up, engulfing me, and in an instant, instead of being in my room, I was in the forest. Let's think about it, I muttered, thinking which shadows I should leave her to farm my EXP. It's hard to decide. While I could send many shadows to kill as many monsters as possible, leveling up the weaker ones would be better. Ultimately, I decided to send 10 human shadows and 1 black spider shadow. Maybe I should leave some of my shadows in the barren lands. It is a great expanse of inhospitable sandy desert contaminated with Magi Kull's radiations, so many monsters should spawn there. But hey, if I'm already here, I should stretch my muscles a bit. I haven't fought anything for a while now. I spent 2 hours running around the forest, killing different monsters and turning them into my shadows before deciding to return to my room with a simple shadow exchange. 2 more years passed as I was studying in the Holy Empire. My shadows were getting stronger and giving me EXP, but I also had them travel the world searching for slave traders, and I would personally take them out. For some reason, I have a slight grudge against slave traders, so I would take them on myself instead of letting my shadows do it. But just last week, one of my shadows stumbled on what looked like a dungeon, and I got interested in it, so I'll be heading there. I don't know what to expect there, but I have been stuck in the library for so long now that I want to go out and do something fun. I chuckled slightly at the thought that entering a possibly dangerous place was considered fun. But I think I'm strong enough to deal with anything that could show up there. _________. Name, Kale Valentine. Titles, Adopted Prince. Level, 15, 516,500/819,200 EXP. Magi calls, 939,525. Stats. Strength, 661. Vitality, 656. Agility, 661. Intelligence, 661. Perception, 658. Remaining points, 69. _________. I sighed. Even if I grew stronger over the 2 years, without using my shadows or magic, my overall strength was slightly above Roy's. I haven't stopped training with him, and I showed improvement and could fight him to a draw, but I have yet to win a single time. But now it wasn't due to a strength difference but to lack of experience. It could also change if it were a battle to the death where we used all we had. Having an army in my shadow and the hundreds of spells I have stored in my mind could make a big difference. I also don't know his full abilities. But enough of that, I should go to the dungeon now. I should tell everyone I would be gone for a few days. Swiftly moving through the corridors of the large church, I made my way toward Mai and Aiden's rooms and heard Mai's voice as I got closer. Aiden, wake up, or you will be late again. Came a muffled voice from inside. Just 5 more minutes. Came the sleepy voice of Aiden. I chuckled before knocking on the door. It's me, Kale. It didn't take long for the door to open, and I saw Mai looking at me with eyes that asked for help. I sighed, on it. I responded and quickly made my way toward the sleeping Aiden. Aiden, I heard someone will ask Megan out. I said in a bored voice, but it worked, and he woke up instantly. Huh. It still works even after 20 times. He stared at me, annoyed, and I could hear Mai giggle. What? I smirked. If you don't want anyone asking her out, do it yourself. It's obvious she likes you. His eyes widened slightly in surprise. Really, she does? He asked. I shook my head. Sometimes you can be so dense. I told him, giving him a pat on the shoulders. You shouldn't be talking about being dense. He said with a deadpan look. Of course, I knew Mai had a crush on me, but she was like a sister to me. I will be out of the city for a few days, so I came here to tell you guys about it. Huh? Where are you going? Mai asked. Just more training. I said, trying to sound bored. At least you will be training outside the city. They both grumbled, wanting to explore the world. Well, I should be going, or we both will be late. I quickly changed the topic and bid them goodbye before talking with Mom. So you want to take a break for a few days? She asked, tilting her head. I nodded, yes. She looked at me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. And you don't plan to do something stupid or dangerous? She asked. No, I don't think it is going to be stupid or dangerous. I answered, wondering if it was stupid. She sighed after a while. Fine, you can go but don't do anything stupid. She said, and I smiled. When have I done something stupid? I said with a smile. Her eyes started twitching. When have you done something stupid? She said, and I could see the slipper in her hand. Let me tell you. I started sweating. Sorry, I need to go. Love you, Mom, I said quickly before standing up and exchanging with my shadow. Shadow exchange. My surrounding changed, and now I stood before what looked like an entrance to a cave. Chapter 24, The Dungeon. Doesn't he look like anything special? I muttered while looking at the plain entrance to what was supposed to be a dungeon. Is this really a dungeon? While I don't doubt my shadows, but this looks like a normal cave entrance. Even if my shadows can't speak, I can still know what they are trying to tell me. It's hard to explain how it works. With a long sigh, I entered the dungeon or cave. After entering the cave, the walls started changing from looking like a normal cave to something artificial. The walls, ground, and ceiling were flat and looked to be carefully measured. I walked further and further into the tunnel. But there was a slight problem. I couldn't see anything and walked forward using my other senses. Good thing I learned a spell for this occasion. Wordlessly, I cast the light spell. A small orb of light appeared on my shoulder and illuminated the area. I continued walking until I saw a gigantic double door. The door was almost 6 meters tall and 4 meters wide. It looked to be made of a similar stone as the walls but slightly darker. I guess I should open it, I said and got closer to the doors. I started pushing the doors open. The stone doors didn't budge an inch, so I put in more force. The stone door ground against the stone floor as they slowly separated from each other, and a crack formed in between them, enough for me to fit in between. I squeezed myself through the crack, and after fit through, the door started to close again. No going back then, huh? I muttered, looking at the closed doors. I let the small light orb fly through the dark room I was in. The room was a hallway. It was wider than the previous one and had 16 large podiums, half to the right and the rest to the left, and another door at the end. On the podiums were massive 6-meter-tall bulky metal statues. I don't know if they could be called statues. They looked more like robots, but instead of hands, they had weapons. I started moving toward the second door, chanting, "Don't come to life," in my mind. As I made it through half of the corridor, I heard something behind me. "Don't turn around. There won't be a statue trying to kill you there," I muttered to myself before slowly turning around, and just as I thought, there was a statue that had sword blades instead of a hand behind me, ready to swing down and slice me in two. I quickly sidestepped the blade, and it hit the stone floor, cracking it. I wonder if I could stop this with my hand. I wondered but didn't have more time to think as another statue thrust a spear in my direction. I dodged the spear point, grabbed it with both hands and lifted the statue before throwing it at the wall. The statue crashed into the wall, forming a spiderweb of cracks, but the statue itself seemed to be still working. Dodging another strike, I saw another statue with 2 battle axes instead of arms. It seems that these statues aren't that advanced and only know how to attack an intruder. If they knew how to work together, this could be hard. I started dodging multiple attacks from different statues as they moved and tried to kill me. Their strength wasn't anything impressive, but they would probably give a group of high-leveled adventurers a run for their money. Should I play with them some more or just obliterate them with one spell? I could bait them into killing each other by dodging at the last moment, but on the other hand, Mom never allowed me to use the more destructive spells. I let out a depressed sigh. I would test some fire or explosive spells if this wasn't a small closed space. So I continued dodging the statue's attacks before stopping in front of the blade statue. Just like I thought, they didn't do anything aside from attacking the enemy. At the last moment, I stepped to the right and saw a spear go through the blade statue, and the blade of the other statue slashed through the head of the lance statue. The blade statue was still trying to free itself from the spear, but the spear statue was motionless. It seemed like destroying its head was enough to kill the statue. On closer inspection, I saw something inside their heads, so due to the lance dying after it was destroyed, I assumed it was their core. Getting bored, I quickly made the distance between myself and the statues before creating multiple ice swords above me. I made this spell based on the ISEKAI lance spell, but instead of shooting a lance, it shoots a sword. With a mental command, the fire swords flew through the air at the statues. Not even a minute passed, and they started looking like porcupines with all the swords sticking out of them. All of them were motionless. Can I call myself an archer now? I wondered about it as more ice swords were created and shot at the statues. I waited a few minutes to see if they would move again, but they didn't, so I went past them and towards the second door. Opening the door, I was met with stairs going down. Just like the other door, this one closed right after I went through. I just hope I find something interesting down here, I muttered and started walking down the stairs. I walked and walked. I even started counting every step. 100, 200, 500, 1000, 2000, 10,000, 100,000. I was starting to get frustrated. How long is this staircase? I decided to look back and instantly stopped. Ha ha ha, a chuckle escaped my mouth at the thing I saw. Not even 20 step up was the same door I went through about. I don't even know when. He 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 he, he 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 he. Something snapped in me, and I started to chuckle like those villains in cartoons. When I find the person who did this, then I will make sure they suffer a slow and painful death. Chapter 25, The Dungeon Master. I'm guessing illusion magic was used here. But how did I not notice it, and who could have done it? For some reason, in the back of my mind, I imagined a yellow fly buzzing around while laughing. I used the dispel spell and continued to walk down while constantly looking back to see if I was actually going down, and to my relief, I was. I sighed. I will get my time to punish the one responsible for this dungeon later. Now I should focus on clearing it. It took me 2 minutes to clear the stairs and enter a circular room. I was happy there was light in this room, and I wouldn't need to use the small orb of light anymore. So what do we have here? I asked myself, looking at the room. Then, an annoying voice came from nowhere. Hey, what are you doing here? This floor isn't finished. It said, and then something started flying around me. Isn't finished? Huh. I said, my eyes twitching as I saw who it was. Yeah, why do you think the entrance was hidden, and I placed a strong illusion spell on the stairs? She asked, and I regretted not bringing a fly swatter. If it wasn't finished, you should have hidden it better. I shouted, annoyed as she was still circling around me. She stopped and looked at me more closely. Even so, you shouldn't even be able to open the first door. She stopped, and her eyes widened. No. If you are here, then my best golems. She mumbled and fell to her knees. Nope, I'm leaving. I turned around and was about to go up the stairs again, but something was tugging on my shirt. Where do you think you are going? She asked, flying in front of me. You destroyed my best golems, so now you must help me create this place. No. I answered and tried to swat her away. If you leave, the demon lords will be going after you. She threatened, but she sounded panicked. She wouldn't do that, right? Well, knowing her, there is a small possibility she would do that, but then again, she wouldn't know who I am or where to find me. And how would you know a demon lord? I asked, tilting my head. Haha. She laughed before pointing at herself. I'm one of the ancient demon lords, she said while looking proud. Are all demon lords weak like you? I asked, knowing that in her true form, she would be one of the strongest beings in this world. I'm not weak. She yelled right into my ear. If you want to know, I could defeat Feldera with one punch, she declared while shadowboxing. I rolled my eyes. Oh really? Yeah, so you should now help me work on this place. I sighed. Fine. She won't stop annoying me and would probably find a way to find me in the church to annoy me even more. But looking at the bright side, I could make traps that would annoy other people. She hummed while looking at me. For someone so young, you must be strong if you managed to come down here. I think I'm average, I answered. Have humans gotten stronger since the last time I saw one? She asked. Ignoring her, I asked, so, where do we start with the dungeon? Oh, look here. I wanted to make this room show the person's deepest fears, she said excitedly. I hummed. If I'm going to help her, then let's make the person trying to go through the dungeon suffer, then make it so when they clear this floor, they will get flushed down to the next. Her eyes instantly got stars. I knew you were a good person for this job. She was practically drooling at this point, to think of something so incredible. Her constant yelling was starting to get annoying, but I forced myself through as we started creating this dungeon floor. She also mentioned that you couldn't actually die in this place, so I could go all out. The next floor was supposed to be a maze where the person that cleared the previous floor would be flushed directly into, so we started making different traps. What are you doing here? Ramaris asked, standing on my shoulder. Oh, this is a simple trap that will detect if the person is male or female, I said, and she looked at me confused, so I decided to explain it further. If it's a female, it will shoot fire at their hair, and if it's a male, then it will shoot an ice spike at, you know where. After explaining it, she looked terrified for some reason. You are a demon, she exclaimed, flying away from me. No, I'm human. Half human? Demi-human? Monster? I honestly still don't know. Weren't the monarchs supposed to be similar to spiritual life forms? Then you must have been raised by demons to come up with something like this, she shouted while pointing at me. Well, vampires, not demons, this is just a harmless prank, and with a healing potion, everything will be fixed, I said casually. Plus, you said people can't die in here. Yup. He was raised by demons, she mumbled. Speaking of demons, can you tell me about the demon lords? I asked her while still tinkering with my little prank trap. I'm not allowed to talk about other demon lords, she said, and I sighed, expecting it. We continued creating the floor, adding more traps everywhere. I even placed a few flashbang spells just before the nut remover traps. The flashbang spell, just as it sounds, will impair someone's hearing and eyesight with a blinding flash of light. I learned it so it could be used in a fight. While it probably won't strongly affect stronger enemies, especially those with the magic sense skill, it's still useful against other people and mainly to annoy them. I hummed while thinking of another trap that could be placed here. Maybe an illusion type spell that will make fun of someone's height. Chapter 26, Most Powerful Spell. After 2 weeks of constant work, we completed the dungeon. I was thankful for the preservation and life-type magic spells, so while they are looked at as useless by many if they don't think of all the different ways they could be used, the preservation magic allows me to store the food in my inventory for a long time. I have tested my inventory over the years and discovered that it doesn't stop time, mainly because my stopwatch was always showing the correct time even after being stored there. Then there is life magic, or as it's also called household magic, that focuses on effects on the human body useful in everyday life. I can instantly clean myself in a second with just one spell. So like I said, not many would think about learning spells that are considered useless in a fight, but they are still useful for me. But it was time to create the last floor of the dungeon, the treasure room, and I know the exact reward to leave here. I placed the one-use scroll on the pedestal in the middle of the room. It had the power to bring an otherworlder down to his knees. The scroll contained one single spell, the one and only Rickroll spell. I spent almost 2 days making the scroll, but when used, it will play Never Gonna Give You Up by Rick Astley. I also thought about making it the Unlimited Salt Works spell, but that would be too far. I wanted to chuckle just thinking about the hardships someone would face just to find this scroll. I should make a recording artifact so I could watch their reaction after seeing and using the scroll. Oh, that would be fun. Why can't I see the scroll? Ramaris whined while flying around me. Because it has only one use, I told her with a sigh. I tried the insect repellent spell on her, but it didn't work, so don't touch it. We built a dungeon together, so aren't we friends? She asked, puffing her cheeks in annoyance. No, we aren't, I answered with a flat look. Fine. She huffed, turning around, then don't expect me to help you when you need it. Hey, don't be like that, I chuckled. Here, have a cookie. While she can be annoying most of the time, we made a good dungeon creating troll duo. She took the cookie and started eating it. I'll be going now. I will leave some information about the dungeon so people come here, I said before leaving the dungeon. Bye-bye, she said while chewing the cookie. I quickly stopped at Falmouth, leaving some information about a dungeon with a spell capable of going against a demon lord. While I could do more, I knew there would be people who would risk it just to gain something so powerful. It's not like I have something against the kingdom itself. For me, they are all the same, and they treated me the good, mostly due to being with Chrono the whole time. But if I would list all the countries from my most to least liked, they would be somewhere around last. Plus, it's one of the countries I'm confident I could take on if this backfired on me somehow. Having finished everything I had to do, I used shadow exchange with a shadow in my room. My room hasn't changed much since I first arrived in this world. The only difference is the 3 bookshelves with my own books. I quickly looked through the various books I found during my short time traveling the continent. I sat down on the chair and turned on the table lamp on the desk, and started thinking. What should I do next? The Holy Knight training program takes 5 years to complete, so in 2 years, Aiden and Mai will complete it and start wandering the continent, helping people, and killing monsters. But what should I do then? Of course, leveling up and growing my army is the obvious goal, but other than that, I don't know what to do. I don't have any big goals in my life. I took the fountain pen that was on my desk and started spinning it, and looked at the ceiling. Building a nation? No. It wouldn't be a good leader. Becoming a hero? I wouldn't cut it. Becoming a demon lord? Maybe. But would it be necessary? I could easily get stronger on my own. The fact that I can with ease expand my magical capacity makes it easy for me to grow stronger, but the Harvest Festival could help evolve my unique skill into an ultimate one. Running my head through my long hair, I sat and thought about my future. I haven't cut my hair for 3 years, and it already goes past my shoulders. Should I cut it? I never cared much about how I looked, especially when I didn't have a choice in my previous life, and it hasn't changed in this one. Well, Mom hasn't said anything about cutting it, so I'm just going to leave it as it is. I said and instantly got a response. How can I help you, young master? My personal vampire maid asked. At first, it felt weird to have her instantly appear after being called, but I got used to it after the first months, and now it's normal for me. Make me some tea, I said, and she did a quick bow before disappearing using shadow motion. Shadow motion is an intrinsic skill for vampires, and it allows the user to utilize shadow space. It is a space inside the shadow that connects it to other shadows and can be accessed through related spatial movement. In a way similar to my shadow exchange, but I wonder if she ever entered my shadow, and if she did, would she be able to see my shadow soldiers? About 5 minutes later, she returned with a cup of tea and some snacks. Thanks, I thanked her, sipping the tea. I never knew that tea could taste this good. When I first tried tea in my previous life, it was bitter and cold, so for a long time, I assumed that's how tea was supposed to taste. I'm just doing my job, she bowed in respect before hiding in the shadows again. I smiled. While she acts professionally all the time, I have seen her in the library reading many times, and I could say we became friends over our love for reading. Chapter 27, Victims of the Dungeon Part 1. A month later, I got notified by my shadow that the first group of victims decided to challenge the dungeon. Tell my mom that I will be gone for the rest of the day, I said before using shadow exchange to the control room we made for the dungeon. So where are they? I asked Ramaris, who was observing something on the screen projections. She jumped in fright. Well, flew up in shock would describe it better. Kale, how did you get here? Magic, was my simple answer, but that doesn't matter right now. Where are they? They just entered the Golem Room version 2.1, she answered before signaling me to look at the screen. Here, check it out. I looked at the holographic screen and saw a group of 5 adventurers walking through the first room. 2 of them were females, one a mage and the other a swordsman. The males all had different equipment. One had a sword, the second had a lance, and the third had a shield. Unlike when I entered it, the room was now dimly lit, allowing them to see the new and improved statues that looked like something straight out of a horror movie. They carefully started walking through the corridor, but when the first 4 statues moved to block the entrance and exit, they jumped in surprise before quickly taking a defensive formation. Do you think they will get past the first floor? I asked Ramaris, who assumed a thinking position. They do look so strong, and with the upgrades we made to the statues, they will have a hard time, she said after a while. Yeah, but I don't think they will die. At least all of them. We made the golems start moving in stages, so they should have an easier time to figure it out, I said while still looking at the screen. We made it the first and last 2 statues attack first, and then after some time passes, the last 4 will attack. The golems charged, ready to go and kill all of the intruders but were blocked by a shield and a barrier spell. The swordsman and lancer charged together to take down 1 golem each. The lancer went for a thrust at where a heart on a human would be while the swordsman went for the head. I shook my head, such a stupid mistake. You always go for the head. But for real, these golems have their core in the head, but there are also 2 different locations where the golem core could be the heart or the stomach. The golem retaliated and smacked the lancer across the room onto another golem that hadn't moved yet. Ouch. That must have hurt. Ramaris winced. Should his leg bend that way? I asked after looking closer at the screen. She hummed before looking at me. By my observation, human legs shouldn't bend that way, she said with a straight face. Nice. We continued watching them. The mage used healing magic on the leg to fix it while being protected by the shielder. They quickly figured out that going for the head was the right move and targeted it. But they forgot one crucial thing. The other statues were also golems. The golem with axe hands came to life and swung its axe hands down at them. They rolled away in the last moment, escaping death, but the force behind the swing made them fly away from each other. Half of the group was at the exit door, while the other half was near the entrance to the second floor. Will they go through this floor, or will they fail? Ramaris said in excitement. Oh, this is so exciting. I hope they do so they find the scroll, I said with a chuckle. The point of this dungeon isn't to kill them and keep the scroll safe but for our entertainment. Apparently, Ramaris sometimes makes a dungeon like this one when she is bored. Plus, I want to see their reaction when they use it. I don't know if having a scroll as the treasure was a good idea, she said. It looks so bland. Normally I use a sword that looks to be powerful but is useless. Well, while the scroll is useless for any average person, it could be fatal for an otherworlder, I said with a chuckle. I hope it won't cause a problem then, she said with a sigh. It won't, I replied, waving my hand, and saw the group taking out another golem. But I hoped it would take them more time to figure out the core it's in their head, she said with a sad sigh. I told you we should place it in the foot, I replied. They wouldn't think it could be in the there. Yeah, maybe you were right. Of course I was. Who do you think I'm? I said with fake arrogance. A human kid that shouldn't be that strong at your age, she deadpanned. Are you even human? Well, she wasn't wrong for the most part. I'm not fully human or human at all. I'm guessing my dad was human, but I can't be completely sure about that. Then there is the system changing me to a monarch or a monarch/ruler hybrid. Rulers could be considered angels, and Ashborn could be considered a fallen angel here. So an angel/fallen hybrid? During the 3 years, I asked Mom about what my race could be since she said I wasn't human or a vampire, but we couldn't think of anything. I can store lots of magicals like a vampire, maybe even more than a vampire, but I don't have the traits of a vampire. But she said I had some magicals before, too much for a normal human and not enough for even a weak vampire. But back to the challenges, they easily opened the door and started going down the stairs. When I entered the dungeon, I had a hard time opening the doors due to the enchantments placed on them. Otherwise, if it was still there, they wouldn't be able to open the door even if all 5 tried simultaneously. Chapter 28, Victims of the Dungeon Part 2. They slowly walked down the stairs as if expecting a trap. Fortunately for them, the trap that was there before when I wanted to go through the dungeon wasn't there. I wanted to keep it, but Ramaris was against it. They quickly arrived at the 2nd floor, and when all stepped inside, they froze in place. On this floor, they would need to conquer their biggest fear before getting access to the next floor. So, want to place a bet on who will be the first to do it? I asked Ramaris. Sure, she responded before assuming a thinking pose and looking at the adventurers. I think it will be the mage. Fine, then I place my bet on. I started to think my first bet was also on the mage, but I couldn't choose the same, the shielder. We waited for 10 minutes and nothing. Another 10 minutes passed, and still nothing. The first hour passed. They were on their knees and crying. Only 2 were fine-ish, the mage and the shielder. I sighed. I didn't think this would take so long. I turned to look at Ramaris. I'm going to go and bring some snacks. Want some? I asked, and she nodded. Okay, I'll be right back. With a quick shadow exchange, I was back in my room again. I looked at the shadow I could sense Elle in. Elle make tea and bring snacks for 3 people. Oh, and make 1 cup extra small, I said, and I could feel her disappear into another shadow. She sometimes feels like an extra shadow soldier. Shadow maid? Now that sounds interesting. After 5 minutes, Elle came back with a pot of tea, 3 teacups, and lots of different types of pastries. Where should I bring them? She asked. You will be coming with me, I said and grabbed her before using shadow exchange, and we appeared in the control room again. I quickly took out a tea table and a sofa from my inventory, put them on the table, I said, sitting down, and Ramaris sat on my shoulder. You can sit down and watch it with us. I said to the maid, who was looking at Ramaris with wide eyes. I don't think it's a good idea as a maid. I should. She was saying, but I stopped her. Don't worry. Ramaris is nice and won't bite you, I said, pointing at Ramaris but quickly taking away my finger as she tried to bite me. She probably won't bite you. I corrected myself. Hey, I'm still a demon lord. You shouldn't talk about me like that. She then huffed, flew to the plate with pastries, and started eating one. Yeah, I know. You said it lots of times already, I said, waving my hand nonchalantly before focusing on the screen. So, did anyone clear the challenge yet? I asked. No, they are still at it, she said with a sigh. We shouldn't have made it so difficult. While we were talking, Elle poured us tea and, with some hesitation, sat down on the sofa. We spent about half an hour eating and chatting before the first one cleared the task, and to my and Ramari's dismay, it was the swordswoman. Erg. She groaned. Okay, the next will be the mage. She shouted. The next was the lancer. Okay, the third will be the mage. It was the swordsman. You know what? I give up. She shouted in frustration and started eating another pastry. But the best part was that the next one to clear the challenge was the mage. Ha 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 ha. I laughed, seeing Ramaris's dead expression. It's good she gave up because the shielder was the last one to finish it. It isn't fair I won the bet. She shouted at me. No, you said you gave up, so deal with it, I said while laughing. Hey, as a demon lord, I should decide the rules. She shouted, but I ignored her and continued laughing to annoy her even more. Oh, we should focus on the screen so we don't miss it, I said and stopped laughing. We all looked closely as the magic light in the room started flashing red before water burst from the side. The floor disappeared, and they were flushed down to the 3rd floor while screaming. Haha. I laughed. Look at their expression. They looked horrified. So this is what you've been doing for the when you were gone, Elle said, looking at the screen with no emotions. Hey, don't be like that, Elle, I said, seeing her blank expression. Isn't this fun for you? As much as I like seeing the humans suffer, this seems like a waste of time. She responded with a sigh. Ramaris and I gasped in shock. How could you say that? The challengers finally made it to the 3rd floor after being flushed down. This floor is a simple maze with lots of traps in it. Nothing special happened on this floor besides the few times someone activated the nutcracker trap. I winced in pain while slightly regretting putting it there, seeing someone having a small ice spear sticking out between their legs. The key word here was slightly. Oh, and there was one time when the girl's hair started burning, and she was basically bald now. But after 2 hours of walking around the maze, they made it to the middle, where the one-of-a-kind magic scroll was. I sighed. I guess that's all the entertainment we will get today, I said before turning to look at Ramirez. If you need help with another dungeon, just call me, I said as we saw the group be flushed down again, but this time to the dungeon's entrance. Sure, but I usually build these dungeons once every few years, Ramirez said, giving me a thumbs up. I used Shadow Exchange to teleport Elle and me back to my room, and she hid the shadow again. Chapter 29, 1 million. I looked at the grandfather clock in my room and saw it was only 4 p.m, so I brought forth my status. __________. Name, Kale Valentine. Titles, Adopted Prince, Troll of the Dungeon. Level, 15, 587,950/819,200 EXP. Magi Calls, 999,775. Stats, Strength, 661. Vitality, 656. Agility, 661. Intelligence, 661. Perception, 656. Remaining points, 203. _________. Noticing the new title I gained, I didn't pay it much attention as I focused on my Magi Calls. I only need less than 300 Magi Calls to reach 1 million. While I could leave it to my shadows, I would have it by the day's end, but I want to do it myself, and I have a few slave traders that should be dealt with. But before I leave, system put 29 points in strength, agility, and intelligence. Then put 34 in vitality and 32 in perception. Strength, 661-690. Vitality, 656-690. Agility, 661-690. Intelligence, 661-690. Perception, 658-690. Remaining points, 203-51. Nice. With stats like these, I'm ready. Shadow Exchange. I was surrounded by my shadow again before emerging in a forested area. Seriously, what is it with slave traders and forests? Most of the slave traders I find are in forests, with some hiding in the cities. That didn't matter right now. I spread my senses to the house they were in. 4 adult slave traders and 6 slaves. It's easy due to their locations. I decided to use some of my more lethal magic here instead of a sword, so I walked towards the house and knocked. I heard footsteps, and then someone opened the door. He had a sword and was ready to attack but then saw me. Huh? A kid. Hello, mister, I said with an innocent smile. You made a mistake, kid. He said with a greedy smile. I have a question, mister, I said, smiling. Can you die for me? Huh. He seemed confused, but it didn't last long as he dropped dead. 100 EXP gained. Magi Calls increased by 100. I just used the spell Mental Crush. The magic attacks the target's spiritual body directly, potentially resulting in an instant kill, an excellent spell to use on weaklings. I calmly walked over his body and saw the other 3 slave traders on guard. So, how should I kill you there? I asked, still keeping my innocent smile. Kill him. One shouted, and they rushed at me. Oh, I know how to kill this one. I activated the spell, and instantly a bolt of lightning shot through the ceiling, hitting one of them and reducing him to ash. 100 EXP gained. Magi Calls increased by 100. I then dodged a swing of a sword and assumed a thinking pose. Now that I used those 2 spells, what should I use on you? I asked them, but they ignored me. Seriously, are they idiots? If I was in their place, I would run and not try to attack the kid who easily killed 2 grown adults. Oh, I know. I exclaimed in joy. Here, have some acid. I then used Acid Shell, a projectile magic that makes a ball of acid. I fired it at him and saw his body start melting, even his bones. 100 EXP gained. Magi Calls increased by 100. I then turned to the last one, who was frozen in fear. So the last one, huh? How should I deal with you? Well, I guess I could use that spell. I used my own shadow spell, and a solid shadow spike shot up from between his feet and skewered him. While I don't gain much from killing humans, the power of their souls would be beneficial if I want to awaken as a true demon lord. 100 EXP gained. Magi Calls increased by 100. Arise, I ordered the dead bodies, and they turned into shadows before kneeling. I gave them a mental order to hide in my shadows, and I proceeded to free the slaves and get them to a safe place. Back in my room, I opened my status again. ___________. Name, Kale Valentine. Titles, Adopted Prince, Troll of the Dungeon. Level, 15, 588,350/819,200 EXP. Magi Calls, 1,175. Stats, Strength, 690. Vitality, 690. Agility, 690. Intelligence, 690. Perception, 690. Remaining points, 51. __________. I sighed while still looking at the status screen. The first big step is achieved now that my Magi Calls reached 1 million. The next step should be to have all the stats over 1,000. I chuckled slightly because after I complete that goal, the next will be to get it to another million or another 1,000, and so on and so on. So it would be a never-ending cascade. There wouldn't ever be a point where it would be enough. I'm also curious about fighting a stronger opponent but not yet. After thinking for a while, I decided to challenge Feldera after my 18th birthday. It's going to be less than 2 years from now, and during that time, I will have learned everything I need. Plus, with my shadows helping me get stronger, I should be able to put up a good fight against him. And if I somehow manage to kill him, the worst thing that would happen would be Mom scolding me for being reckless for a while before celebrating afterward. But Feldera could also be mad at me and attack the next time he respawns. But could I make his old body a shadow? I don't know how my shadow creation works. Does it require the soul of the being, or will just the body be enough? A soul should leave the body right after being killed, but I could still make them into shadows. I started almost drooling just by thinking of having a few Feldera shadows. Hehehe. I chuckled to myself. Thankfully Elle wasn't in my room right now. Otherwise, she would think I went crazy. Crazier. I have maybe once started laughing like a madman while reading in my room, and she was in the shadows. She looked at me weirdly for the next few weeks. But how could I not laugh when I managed to merge fire and ice magic into one? The icy fire looks like a white flame with a tint of light blue and has similar effects to the icebreaker. Chapter 30, 15th birthday. So why did you ask me to come here? I asked Aiden while yawning. I need your help to find something for Megan. He answered nervously. Ah, right, her birthday should be next month. I smirked. So what will you give your girlfriend? Embarrassed, his face became red. That's why I asked you for help. He shouted. I chuckled. Yeah, what are friends for? 2 years passed since my magi calls reached 1 million, and I spent that time refining my combat skills and creating my own magic spells. I even started working on my own branch of magic I haven't seen in this world. I had one goal during that time. To become strong enough to fight Feldera. That's the best thing I could come up with as a temporary goal for myself. I know most attacks wouldn't work on his, but if I remember correctly, he should only have a resistance to elemental magic and not nullification. So I started developing spells that would be condensed to make them more powerful. Honestly, I'm still not sure if I could put on a good fight, but with all the shadows in my possession, I have a slight chance to win if I play my cards right. But with a slight chance, I mean like 0.1%. Now that I'm able to completely overpower Roy and Lewis in a fight and even match Mom in pure fighting capability, I should be able to do it. But that will wait until I fight him for now. I turned to Aiden. So where do we start? I asked. I was thinking of buying her a rapier, he said, scratching his cheek. You know our training ends in a few months, so a good blade would be a good present, right? He asked me. A sword would be good, or maybe a defensive amulet, I said while also thinking. I saw one that would make a barrier and could be used multiple times. What do you think about this one? Aiden asked me to show another rapier. I looked at the rapier, exhausted. It's the third time you are showing me this one. I answered. No, this one has a gem that is a shade lighter than the previous one, he said. I didn't know what to say. We have gone through hundreds of different rapiers, and he has shown me the same one multiple times. It feels like he is just trying to drag this out. I sighed before looking at the different rapiers in the store. All were excellent blades, but we spent 2 hours looking through them. How about this one? I asked, showing him the rapier. He looked at it, then shook his head. No, not this one. I sighed, and we continued to look for a rapier, and finally, after another hour, we found one rapier that apparently had a gem with the same shade as her eyes. I think you looked at this sword 4 times and said it wasn't the one. I grumbled while we were walking back to the church. It must have been the light messing with me. He chuckled nervously. Yeah, sure, and I'm a prince. I joked. We arrived at the church and headed to his room to leave the sword there. For some reason, he asked if I could loan him one of my books, so we went to my room, but I felt 4 different signatures there. Strange, I muttered. I knew who the signatures belonged to but couldn't figure out why they were there. Did you say something? He asked, but I shook my head. Opening my room, I noticed it was dark, and when I turned the light on, "Happy birthday," they shouted. My eyes widened in surprise. Not because I was surprised by them being here but about what they just said. Birthday? I asked. Of course, you forgot. Mai said and chuckled. You always remember everyone's birthday but forget yours. You've grown, kid, Clive said and ruffled my hair. I remember when you arrived here just 5 years ago. I remember how cute you looked back then, Carly added. I've seen them a couple of times over the years, mostly Carly, due to her working as a healer in the church. I glanced over at the room, and I saw it was decorated, and they had a birthday cake for me. While I'm not the biggest fan of someone being in my room without my knowledge, I trust that they won't steal any of my books, plus I have gotten used to them making a surprise birthday party in my room because we don't have any other place to do it. We spent some time chanting and eating the cake, but Clive and Carly needed to return to work, so they left early, leaving only me, Aiden, Mai, and Megan. They also left a present for me, a book on how to use healing type holy magic they wrote themselves. While I know how to use normal healing magic, they didn't know that, but I still appreciated the gift. The next gift I got was clothes from Megan, Aiden, and Mai, who said my clothing style wasn't good. I don't know if I should be insulted or not, but the clothes she got me looked really good. We had fun joking around and telling different stories, especially the ones about the ones when Aiden got scolded for being late. But it was getting late, and they needed to wake up early for practice. Megan and Aiden were the first ones to leave, but Mai stayed behind. She started fidgeting. I saw you looking at this once, so I decided to buy you this. It's not much but I hope you like it, she said, giving me a present small box. I took the box and opened it. It was a monocle I was looking at one time, thinking it would look cool to wear it with a wizard hat. I smiled. Thank you, I said, giving her a hug. I felt slightly bad knowing she had a crush on me, but I didn't know how to tell her I see her at most as a sister. Later Mom also paid me a visit with her present, a special armor made out of magi steel and similar to my sword. It can grow with me. Chapter 31, Black Cloak Part 1. 2 months have passed since my birthday, and Aiden, and I can officially call ourselves Holy Knights. It's really strange to imagine 5 years passed so quickly, from waking up in the basement to failing the daily quest. If I'm being honest, sometimes it feels like not even a month has passed. I chuckled, remembering how I ran from those centipedes. Then the escape we made with a stupid plan that I'm still surprised worked out. And lastly, arriving in the city. I looked at the cloudless sky with a smile, happy to have gotten this second chance at life. Hey, Kale, are you ready? Came Mai's voice and I felt a tap on my shoulder. I looked down and chuckled, seeing her on her toes while trying to do it. I have grown a lot in those years, being at 175 centimeters. Yeah, I'm ready, I answered with a chuckle. It has been some time since I have been monster hunting. Of course, I lied, as the last time was a few days ago, but they don't need to know that. So where is Aiden? I asked. He is still getting ready, she sighed. Seriously, he takes hours to wake up. She grumbled. Megan arrived a few minutes later, and Aiden took another 10 minutes. Let's get going. We shouldn't keep Clive waiting, I said, and we started walking toward the gates. After finishing the training, Holy Knights were assigned a senior Holy Knight to show them the ropes, and I had Mom pull some strings to get Clive as our senior. At first, I wanted to go solo so I could spend time killing the high-leveled monsters, but on second thought, I thought it would be a good idea to spend some time with the group. It will only be for a few months, and then we will probably split up and do our work. In the first 2 weeks, nothing special happened. We just helped some villagers to kill monsters attacking them, but one of my shadows found something interesting. A group of people wearing masks and black cult-like robes. Now this is something that is interesting, so during the night, when everyone was sleeping, I decided to check it out. I made sure everyone was asleep before I used shadow exchange. Looking around, the place resembled a basement, but it had what looked like a summoning circle in the middle. So that leaves me with 3 options for what they are trying to summon: demons, elementals, or otherworlders. I could easily scratch elementals from the list, and that would leave me with demons or otherworlders. I'm seriously hoping they are trying to summon demons and not otherworlders. I started looking around the place for any clues, but when I found some notes scattered on a table, I frowned. It described a 30-day ritual that needed 30 mages to perform. While it could still be that they are trying to summon a powerful demon, the chances are small, leaving me with only the otherworlder option, and they never end well. I memorized the ritual just in case I wanted to use it at a later date. While I'm not fond of summoning otherworlders, you never know when the information could be useful. Summoning magic is something I skipped entirely over the years, leaving it on my to-do last list. I also saw another list with names I didn't recognize but quickly memorized if they were important. Oh, a map, I mumbled, finding a map with different spots marked. Judging by the fact that my current location is marked on the map, I assume they have more hiding spots. But would that mean they are trying to summon more otherworlders? If so, then what are they trying to do? I know otherworlders are used as powerful slaves to their summoner's bidding due to a control curse. This could be bad. Sensing people coming here, so I hid in the shadows. A group of 30 people entered the room wearing masks covering the upper half of their faces and black robes. My brethren. The one who seemed like the leader spoke first. Today we will finish our ritual and will be able to conquer the empire from the fake goddess. No longer will we be working for a fake. From this day onwards, we will rule the empire. For black cloaks. He shouted, raising his hand in the air. For black cloaks. They chanted in unison. I frowned. It's good I found them before they could finish the ritual, otherwise, we could have a small problem. Mom has told me things like this happen often, and she sometimes needs to deal with them, but if I'm already here, why not stop it myself? Black Cloak? I asked, stepping out of the shadow. Who came up with such a stupid name? They instantly got on guard. He's a worshipper of the fake goddess? Kill him. The leader shouted, and they all started casting their spells. I sighed. That's not a nice way to treat a guest, I said, and dispelled their spells. Their magic instantly vanished while I continued walking towards them. Now I only need one of you alive, and that guy looks like the leader, so he should know the most about this. Impudent brat, you think you can stop us? He shouted in anger. Did he forget I cancelled the spell of 30 people without a chant? Sometimes I wonder how stupid people can get. That didn't matter right now. With a simple swipe of my hand, I cast the shadow spikes shot up from the ground, skewering and killing all of them aside from the leader. 8,700 EXP gained. Magi calls increased by 8,700. My eyes rose in surprise, seeing the amount I gained from killing them. Usually, I would get 100 EXP for killing them, but these guys gave me 300. I guess it's because they are mages, while the slave traders I usually fight are normal weak humans. Mages would also be a good addition to my shadow army. Chapter 32, Black Cloak Part 2. WHWH what? The leader was stuttering on the floor, looking at me in fear, unlike just a few seconds ago. I kicked him lightly and made him fly and hit the wall. I will be the one asking the questions, I said and walked to where he crashed. What was the summoning ritual for? I asked, and he didn't answer, so I decided to break his leg. Stepping on his leg, I put in a bit of force and could hear his bones shatter easily. Arg! He screamed. Now, if you don't answer my question, I will break the other one, and this will continue until you tell me what I want, I explained before giving him a smirk, and don't worry, I know healing magic. I waited for him to understand what I just said, so now answer my question. We wanted to summon otherworlders, he stuttered out. Good now, was it only you, or are there more people in your group? I asked and placing my foot over his other leg to scare him. We have more locations they are on that map over there, he said, pointing at the map I saw before. Do you have other hidden bases besides the ones marked on the map? I asked, ignoring him. And no, we don't. He stuttered out, please let me live. I won't tell anyone. I hummed, I don't think I will. I told him and killed him. 300 EXP gained. Magi calls increased by 300. Now, arise. I ordered the dead bodies, and without any problems, they became my shadows. Was everything you said true? I asked the shadow, to which it nodded. While the shadows couldn't talk yet, they could understand, so I used it to confirm if everything he said was true. Before going to the next place, I took everything they had and stored it in my inventory, heading straight to the one that was marked the biggest out of all of the areas while my shadows went for the others. Flying at full speed for 20 minutes, I arrived at the locations and felt 60 people together, already performing the magic, so I quickly made it to them. Now that we have the sacred scroll, no one can stop us. I heard someone shout, and when I saw the scroll in his hand, I stopped, and my eye widened. Ha 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 ha. I laughed, alerting them of my position. Oh, I can't. I wheezed. The scroll they had was the one from the dungeon I created with Ramirez 2 years ago. Who are you? The leader of this group shouted, pointing a staff at me. Oh, I'm just here to kill you, but thanks for the laugh. I needed that, I said and tried to stop laughing. You think you can do something against us? A single kid against 60 capable mages? He asked with a smirk, and a fireball flew in my direction. I calmly sidestepped the fireball and walked toward them calmly while observing their reactions. Weak magic like this won't be enough, so if you want to win, maybe use that scroll, I said in a bored tone. You think I will waste a scroll like this on a kid who luckily dodged a simple spell? The leader laughed. I sighed. I see, then let's make it fun, I said and smiled. If you don't use that scroll, I will kill you. One by one. I focused on one of the members. You will be the first. In an instant, I was in front of him, my hand sticking out of his chest. I turned to look at the leader. Look, his heart is still beating, I said with a slightly insane smile as I pulled my hand out with a still beating heart before crushing it. 300 EXP gained. Magi calls increased by 300. Everyone, fire spells at him. He's a demon. He shouted and tried to run away, but I had a shadow soldier hide in his shadow. Dozens of spells started flying at me, but they were too slow, so I started to dodge them and started to kill them using the martial arts I had learned. Kicks, punches, and throws with the force I used instantly killed them like they were nothing. Ha ha ha. My laughter could be heard through the dimly lit room as the body parts that were hit quickly separated from their bodies due to the force they were hit by, so in a matter of a few minutes, every single one of them was dead. Why am I knowing this? Seeing their terrified faces and their blood sprayed throughout the room makes me feel excited. Should I stop? I thought about it for a moment, but something inside told me that there wasn't anything wrong with enjoying their death. They deserved what was coming to them. Arise, I ordered, and 59 shadows bowed to me. Now it's time to go for the leader, I said and used shadow exchange to appear behind him. Tapping him on the shoulder, I asked, so are you going to use the scroll now? He turned around, his eyes wide and his legs shaking. He fell on the floor and tried to move away from me and opened the scroll. Let the one and only God Arik everyone. He said the chant, and the only thing that happened was the song that started playing. I cringed and backed away slightly as the song started playing. Did I really think this was a good chant to activate the spell? I feel slightly ashamed I made this scroll. Ha ha ha, you shouldn't let me use this now that you messed up the ritual. I should use the control spell on you, he said, regaining some confidence, and stood up before walking up to me. But then I grabbed his wrist and looked him in the eyes. Did you really that thing had actual power? I created it as a joke a few years ago, I said, and I could see him become pale as a ghost. Well, my shadows have already done their job, so I should just end it here. I used the icebreaker. His whole body froze before it shattered, and I turned him into shadows before doing the same thing in the 4 other locations that my shadow cleared while also storing everything useful from them, like notes and anything about the group. Afterward, I went to Mom to show her everything about the group and if there was a bigger mastermind behind them, but I doubt there was. Black Cloak, she said while looking through the papers, their naming sense is getting worse with every new group that pops up. Yeah, found them by luck, and apparently, they want to summon otherworlders to bring you down. I said with a sigh, I have already taken down the 6 locations marked on the map, but they could have been part of something bigger. It's possible, but who would do that? She asked while taking another paper. Who would be stupid enough to go against the whole of Rubrios? I thought about it for a bit but couldn't think of anyone besides one kingdom. A few years back, Ramrus and I made a dungeon for fun with a fake scroll, and I left the information for Falmouth. One of them had it today. It could be someone from Falmouth, or they lost the scroll. She hummed, yes, I've been told about it. She rubbed her temples, remembering it. You should be glad it was Ramrus, not any of the other demon lords. She said. Oh, and what demon lord should I watch out for then? I asked with a smirk. All of them. She screamed, throwing the papers everywhere. I can't deal with you anymore. Don't worry, if I meet any one of them, I will get away, I said, waving my hand like it wasn't a big deal. Now that I have thoughts of soldiers in my shadow and a jar of honey, the only demon lord I should watch out for is Guy, but the chances of him leaving the ice continent are small. Actually, Mom. I stopped myself. No, never mind. I wanted to ask her about the feeling I got while killing them but decided not to. Chapter 33, Guy Crimson Part 1. 4 months flew by rather quickly, and I couldn't find anything new about Black Cloak after I killed all those magicians. After reporting it to my mother, I returned to my group, and we continued to help villages and hunt monsters. It wasn't anything hard, considering the hardest out of all the monsters we fought was a Birank. But now I'm alone again while Megan, Aiden, and Mai found a new group consisting of 10 other members, and Clive returned to his usual duties. Of course, I left my shadow soldiers in their shadows just to be safe before leaving. Bringing forth my status, I decided to use the points that I had stored up for over 2 years. Name, Kale Valentine. Titles, Adopted Prince, Troll of the Dungeon. Level, 16, 1,091,650/1,638,400 EXP. Magi Culls, 1,994,200. Stats, Strength, 691. Vitality, 691. Agility, 691. Intelligence, 691. Perception, 691. Remaining points, 2,601. I whistled, looking at my current status. I haven't looked at it since my Magi Culls reached 1,002.5 years ago, so seeing them being almost at 2 million and having nearly 3,000 points to spend was a lovely sight. System put 700 points in strength and agility. I said to the system. Strength, 691-1,391. Agility, 691-1,391. Remaining points, 2,601-1,201. Now what do I distribute the rest? Put 400 points to Vitality, Intelligence, and Perception. Vitality, 691-1,091. Intelligence, 691-1,091. Perception, 691-1,091. Remaining points, 2,601-1. I brought my status up again and had a smile seeing my stats over 1,000, yet another goal complete. I muttered. Name, Kale Valentine. Titles, Adopted Prince, Troll of the Dungeon. Level, 16, 1,091,650/1,638,400 EXP. Magi Culls, 1,994,200. Stats, Strength, 1,391. Vitality, 1,091. Agility, 1,391. Intelligence, 1,091. Perception, 1,091. Remaining points, 1. I sighed and took out an apple from my inventory, and started eating it, minding my own business, but then my whole body screamed at me to run away. I twirled around at full speed only to see Guy Crimson standing there. Yo, do you have an apple for me? He asked with a smirk. It's rude to eat alone while the other watch. Why do I feel like just yesterday I said I wouldn't meet him? Sure, catch. I threw an apple at him. He caught it and took a bite. I felt someone strong here, but I didn't expect it to be a teenager. And who might you be? I asked, slightly nervous and ready to shadow exchange back to the church at any moment. But I felt some sort of disturbance blocking my connection to all the shadows outside my shadow. Ha ha ha, I'm the oldest demon lord Guy Crimson, he said with a chuckle. Normally, I would just kill anyone who asked for my name, but you are interesting. A demon lord? I haven't seen one for a long time, I said, hoping me knowing Ramrus would save me here, and thankfully he looked interested. You've seen another demon lord, huh? He asked, getting closer to me. Yes, I have met Ramrus a few times, I replied, sweating slightly. Oh, and she hasn't told me about someone so interesting, he said, and now he was a few meters away from me. I want to see what you can do, he said, and I backed away slightly. See what I can do? I asked, but then barely dodged a kick. Yes, you are interesting indeed. He hummed, now get ready if you don't want to get seriously hurt. I was thinking about running away, but I knew I wasn't fast enough to run away from him, and the fact that he didn't look like he wanted to kill me made me stay, so our little fight began. He wasted no time, extending his hand and summoning a torrent of scorching flames that rushed toward me. The heat was intense, threatening to consume everything in its path. Remaining calm, I made an ice wall as a protective shield around me. It didn't last long as from the flames came a fist that cracked the ice and headed straight toward me. I took out my sword and reinforced it before blocking his punch. Even if I blocked it, the force behind the attack was enough to make me stumble back a few meters. It felt like I was hit by a truck. Quickly regaining my balance, I took a defensive stance waiting for another attack, noting that if he wanted to kill me, my sword would break without any resistance by just his punch alone. I get it, you have good reactions, but you should try and attack me too, he said in a slightly bored tone. You don't want to bore me otherwise. This won't end well for you. Well then, I should go all out then, I said with a smirk while still feeling scared. Shadows erupted from the ground, snaking toward Guy to hold him still. While I knew they wouldn't hold him for long, it would still give me a moment of surprise, and he seemed interested in them, so I used the time to attack. I swung my sword aiming for his head, but just by lifting his hand, he split one of my shadows in two and blocked the blade. Well, this is an interesting ability. He chuckled before trying to punch me with his other hand, but I dodged it and went for a kick to his chest. Interesting, he muttered. Your ability is a skill, but I can't copy it. His smirk widened to a grin. Now you got my attention. I don't know if that's a good thing, but if you are going to use a sword, then it's only fair I use mine, he said, bringing out a sword I knew was powerful just by looking at it. Let's see what you can do, kid, he said before rushing at me. Chapter 34, Guy Crimson Part 2. Guy started unleashing slashes with incredible speed and precision. I either tried to redirect the attack or used my shadow to stop him for a while and dodge. I knew full well that he was playing with me, but I tried my best to at least get one proper hit in. Right now, my life depends on him not finding me boring and killing me. I'm still trying to get a connection to one of my shadows outside the fight. It's like they are there, but they aren't at the same time. Guy Crimson POV. This kid is strong. While having a Demon Lord seed, he possesses strength equal to a true Demon Lord. Then there is his race. He gives off a similar feel to a high human and a vampire with a mix of something different, something new. I smirked. That's not all interesting about him. There is the skill he uses. Shadow-like creatures are hidden in his shadow. If I hadn't lived for as long as I did, then I wouldn't be able even to notice them. If he becomes a Demon Lord, then the next game will be interesting. Kale Valentine POV. The only thing that could be heard was the clashing of blades. I was focused entirely on dodging while Guy had a smirk on his face. Coming up with an idea, I decided to use shadow exchange with one of the shadow soldiers in his shadow. Unlike the shadows that are outside the battle area, I could normally connect to these ones. I appeared behind him and swung my sword, but he quickly twirled around, slightly surprised or intrigued, and jumped away, but I managed to graze him. Oh, that's an interesting ability, he said. How about you work for me? He asked. Sorry, but my mother told me not to trust demons. I joked while dodging another attack. Oh, and who might your mother be? He asked, his smirk still present. Oh, you should know her. She hates a certain dragon. I replied and had a few hundred shadow soldiers grab his left leg while I tried to cut off his arm. If I remember correctly, he knows she is the true Demon Lord, not Lewis. If not, then sorry, Mom, my life is more important than your secret. I could also use the fact that I'm sort of friends with Ramirez to help me. I see, so you are her son. He said. I had no idea she had a son. But that didn't mean the fight stopped. This continued for about half an hour before he spoke again. Then how about becoming a Demon Lord? He asked. Wouldn't I be too weak for Demon Lord? I asked, but he laughed. Ha ha ha, that's a funny joke, he said before making some distance between us. Normal Demon Lord seeds wouldn't be able even to dodge a single of the attacks, but you did, and you have the shadow things I can't even copy. He paused and smirked again. Plus, considering you are still a young kid, it speaks of your potential. He then looked at me. So what's your answer? While he is asking me, this sounds more like an order. But I planned on becoming a Demon Lord in the future, so joining the Demon Lord Council wasn't a bad choice. I sighed. I'm guessing if I say no, you would kill me, so I accept. See, you are even smart for your age. He laughed and instantly appeared beside me at a speed I couldn't even register and patted me on the shoulder. So what was your name again? I forgot. I didn't say my name. I said before sighing. It's Kale Valentine. So, Kale Valentine, huh? He hummed. Here, catch this. He then threw me a ring. What is this? I asked, looking at it, already knowing. It's a communication ring. He said, so while you aren't fully recognized as a Demon Lord yet, there is no chance they will say no when I'm the one recommending you. I see, I said, looking at the ring before putting it on. So now that you accepted my ring, he said with a joking tone and got closer to my face. I used a shadow to block him. I'm 15. I said flatly. Come on, don't be like that. I was just joking, plus age is just a number for me, he said, laughing before turning serious. There will be a Walpurgis banquet held especially for you in a few weeks, so you should get ready. I sighed. I hoped it would take some time before they did it, but I guess not. Just don't use my real name. I said, it could cause problems with me acting as a holy knight. Oh, then what should I call you? Shadow. He joked, with the shadow things you use, it would be fitting. While shadow doesn't sound that bad, I have something else on my mind. Ashbourne. I said. Ashbourne. He thought for a moment. That doesn't sound that bad. I like it. You are good at coming up with names. I will remember that for the future, he said before leaving, and I felt like I had made a big mistake. Oh, and ask your mother for the details. He shouted before completely disappearing. Oh shit. I cursed, she will kill me, dash. Well, no going back now, I muttered, having spent hours thinking of how to tell her this. After Guy left, my connection to all the shadows returned to how it was before, and I could easily teleport back. I knocked on the door, come in. Her voice came from the other side, so I took a deep breath and opened the door. Hey, Mom. I started, and she instantly put down the paper she was reading and looked at me with a look that she usually has when I tell her something stupid I did. So, what did you do this time? She asked. So you remember a few months ago when we talked about demon lords? I started and looked to see her reaction. And why do you bring that up? She asked with her eye twitching, and her hand was in the summon the flipper position. So I maybe met a red-haired demon lord. I started and instantly dodged a flipper that was thrown at me. You met Guy? She screamed at me. Well yeah, and we may have fought for a while, I said, and she slammed her head onto the desk. This must be a joke. I heard her mutter before she looked at me, so how are you here then? I scratched my head and chuckled, hee hee. I was coming there. He was interested in me and forced me to become a demon lord. Ha ha ha. She just laughed while looking at the ceiling. Yup, this a joke. It was also when Guy decided to inform everyone there would be a Walpurgis banquet in 2 weeks about a new member he found. So this wasn't a joke. She sighed and rubbed her temples. Yeah, but I asked him to call me Ashbourne because I didn't want Kale the Holy Knight to be associated with Kale the Demon Lord, I said, sipping tea Roy brought. Ashbourne, not bad, she said before explaining that the whole Walpurgis banquet was a glorified tea party. The next few weeks I spent preparing for the banquet until it was time for it to begin. Chapter 35, Walpurgis Banquet Part 1. Currently wearing the outfit I had prepared for the banquet, a long black coat over a black shirt and black pants. Something I made especially for the banquet was a helmet with 2 curved black horns, hair like blue flames, and my glowing blue eyes shining through it. It looked similar to the helmet Ashbourne had, but instead of purple it was blue. I saw the demonic-looking gates appear in front of me. The gates opened, and out of them stepped a green-hair maid. She was the green primordial demon and subordinate to Guy Crimson, the red primordial, the guy that forced me into this. Lord Ashbourne, I'm here to bring you to the banquet. Please proceed when you are ready, she said and waited patiently at the side of the door. Well, let's not keep them waiting. I stepped through the door with 2 of my shadow solitaire that looked like knights walking behind. The moment I walked in, I could see Guy sitting alone around a round table with 11 chairs. So the other 10 are already demon lords as of right now. Good to know. So these were the shadow things you used when fighting, he said, very interesting. I was glad he couldn't copy my skill. Otherwise, it could end badly for me. I don't think they are anything special. I replied, my voice altered by the helmet. Ha ha ha. That's why I like you. He laughed. Even when you knew I was a demon lord, you acted like it wasn't a big deal. We talked for a while until the next member arrived. Huh. She then flew to me. Kale, you are the new demon lord. She asked. Yes, this was Ramaris. How did she even know? I sighed. Yeah, a big bad red demon bullied me into becoming one. But call me Ashbourne while here. I answered. Guy? How could you do that, a kid? She yelled at Guy, who looked annoyed, so I chucked. I could do things like this since he was interested in me, and I had known Ramaris for a few years now. Guy, Ramaris, and Mom or Roy. That's 3 out of the demon lords. Then the rest should be Dagruel, Dino, Kazalim, Carrion, Frey, and Claypot. Ah, Ramaris, you have grown smaller since the last time I saw you. Someone yawned as he was walking behind me, so this is the new guy. He looked at the shadow soldiers but didn't say anything before sitting down and trying to fall asleep, ignoring Ramaris's complaints. Want a pillow? I asked, giving him a pillow which he gladly took, and fell asleep. Even if I'm here to become a demon lord, I should be nice to some of them. A few minutes later, Milim arrived and looked excited, so this is the new guy. He is quite powerful for only being a seed, she said before sitting down. If I remember correctly, she has a unique skill that allows her to read anyone's magical power even if they are suppressing it. The next person to arrive was Roy, who acted as the demon lord. Everyone started to slowly arrive, with Kazalim, wearing a mask and robes, being the last to arrive. If I remember correctly, she had a curse forcibly put on her to transform her into a man or something in that line. Then the blue-haired maid, I think her name was Rain, started introducing everyone. Demon, the Lord of Darkness, Guy Crimson. Dragonoid, the Destroyer, Milim Nava. Pixie, Fairy of the Labyrinth, Ramaris. Gigant, Continent's Wrath, Dragruel. Vampire, Bloody Lord, Roy Valentine. Fallen, Sleeping Ruler, Dino. Detman, Curse Lord, Kazalim. Lycanthrope, Lion King, Carrion. Harpy, Sky Queen, Frey. Detman, Marionette Master, Clayman. And finally, Unknown, Ashbourne. Unknown? Well, I myself don't know my race, so it's not surprising, but I would have guessed they would introduce me as a demonoid. This concludes the introductions. She then bowed and stepped back a bit. Then Guy stood up and addressed everyone. Now then, I won't bore you with other stuff. I'm here to introduce Ashbourne as a new demon lord. I fought him, and he has my approval. Going straight to it, huh? I felt slightly nervous on the inside, while on the outside, I showed an indifferent reaction. Not like they could even see it. Now then, what do you say? He asked everyone. There are 2 ways to become a recognized demon lord. Getting nominated by other demon lords to join their ranks and receiving majority approval. Self-proclaiming to be a demon lord and then proving one's strength by defeating a recognized lord. Can I keep this pillow? Dino asked me with one open eye. Sure, I replied. He has my approval. He replied before going to sleep again. He's strong, and I want to fight him, so I approve. Milim said, giving me a thumbs up, and I chuckled nervously. One thing Milim doesn't know is how to hold back. He has my vote. Ramaris said, flying up with her fist up high. I don't have anything against him, Roy said. Oh, thanks, teacher. I chuckled mentally. I already have enough votes in my favor to join. I approve, Kazalim said. If I remember correctly, she, doesn't matter. She usually approves of new members in order to obtain further political pull amongst fellow demon lords. At least I didn't need to fight to become one. In the end, thanks to having all the ancient demon lords' approval, I quickly got the others' approval too. Well, since everyone agrees, we can welcome Ashbourne as an official demon lord. Guy said before his expression became grim. Now we should decide a title for him. Oh no, came everyone's response, and some had a look of envy looking at Dino, who slept without any care. What's with the gloomy atmosphere? It's not like I need a title right off the bat, I said, trying to cheer them up, but I quickly got denied. You don't understand, the title is important, and we can't just use something boring like newbie, Ramaris said, flying close to my face while the others nodded. Chapter 36, Walpurgis Banquet Part 2. How about something with shadows? I asked, and they started thinking. Yeah, that could be it, Guy said. Shadow, Guy's shadow. He stated, muttering different names. Shadow Lord, no need to be something grander like. I know Shadow Monarch. He said and looked proud of himself for coming up with it while I deadpanned. You used hundreds of those shadows when we fought, so it fits. It's a good name. They muttered while nodding, and so my title as a demon lord has become the Shadow Monarch. New title acquired, Demon Lord. Huh, a new title. It's been a few years since my titles changed. Shadow Monarch. I like it, I said with an approving nod. Hey, CA. Ashbourne, what are you going to do now that you have become a demon lord? Ramaris asked me, and it got the attention of the others. I don't have anything special planned, so maybe make a floating castle for myself. I said the first thing that came to my mind. A floating castle, now that's interesting, Guy chuckled. You should invite me when it's built. Oh, I want to see it. Milim said, excited. At least he has done more than Dino, Ramaris said while Dino was still sleeping but woke up momentarily. At least I didn't grow smaller, he said and fell asleep again. I don't even understand how he can wake up every time Ramaris says something about him and then instantly fall asleep. Hey, now that we have a new member, we need a new name, Milim said. The whole table became silent again at the mention of coming up with a name, and I felt them glare at me. Hey, it isn't my fault you accepted me, and if you want to blame someone, then blame Guy for forcing me into becoming one. How about Ramaris and friends? Ramaris suggested but got quickly denied by everyone. I already came up with the greatest title possible for him, so he should repay us for it by coming up with the name, Guy said with a prideful tone and looked at me, and they all nodded in agreement, even Roy making me feel betrayed. Shit, I cursed them all. I'm not good with names. We are 11. If we were 8, I could steal Rimura's octagram idea. Let's see 11 members. Hendecagram, 11 heavenly demon lords, 11 sagely demon lords. I could feel everyone's intense glare at me while I was thinking. I know you are bad with names like me, but it would be easier if you all helped me. I wanted to yell at them. What about the 11 sagely demon lords? I said, not being able to come up with something good. They started murmuring to themselves before Dragruel said, it's alright. They all nodded. It's better than Ramaris and friends, Dino said after waking up momentarily, but all of them nodded in agreement except Ramaris, who seemed offended. It was an awesome name, she said, puffing her cheeks. I think Milim and friends would have been better, Milim said. The banquet turned into a tea party while the rest of the world was probably dreading the outcome of it. Some of them left directly after, but some stayed behind. Now with the name decided, we started talking about different stuff until Ramaris brought up something I didn't expect. Hey Dragruel, have you found out why there aren't so many monsters in your territory lately? She asked, and I was sweating mentally. No, I haven't, and my sons have grown bored with fewer monsters to fight, causing me a headache, he said. Speaking of fighting, Milim turned to me. How about you fight me? She asked, excited for a fight. Ha ha ha, I laughed nervously. If you are at the same level of strength as Guy, I don't think I would be able to put up a good fight just yet. How about in a few years? I asked. Ugh. But that's so long to wait. Fine. Thankfully she agreed. Otherwise, I would probably be dead. I took a sip of the purple wine and could feel Mum's glare behind Roy, so I decided to put the glass down and not drink for the rest of the banquet. Everyone began to talk about random stuff before they started to leave one by one. I decided to leave after Mom and Roy, and we returned to her office. I sighed as the demon maids left. Well, it went better than expected. I said. You should be lucky you got Guy's interest. Many others would have been killed. She said with a sigh of relief. The others aren't me, I said in a prideful tone, only to get hit by a slipper. I swear you are getting harder to deal with each passing year, she said and sat down on the sofa. So what are you planning to do now? I sat down on the other sofa. As I said, I plan to make a floating castle for myself as Demon Lord Ashbourne while doing some Holy Knight Kale stuff on the side. That wasn't a joke? She asked, having fully expected it was a joke. No, it wasn't. I shook my head. Plus, isn't it a must to have your own castle when being a demon lord? I joked. While most demon lords have their own castle, there are people like Dino, a freeloader. But the other reason for making it would be for humans to attack me so I could collect their souls for the harvest festival. They would do the job for me, and it's not like I could be blamed for killing them when they do it themselves, and I would also make a name for myself as someone that shouldn't be messed with. Well then, I should get started, I said and hugged her. See you later, Mom. Chapter 37, Floating Castle. Currently standing in the place I wanted to build my castle. It was in a place where humans could attack without getting magicule poisoning, but at the same time, there were enough magi calls in the air for me to make the castle float without any issues. In the worst case scenario, I could use my shadows as batteries for the castle to float. It was close to the sea and near the various western states, but far enough that I could build a country without any issues here if I wanted to. Well then, no time to waste, everyone out, I said, and instantly, my shadow expanded, and out of it, thousands of shadow creatures appeared. Tigers, spiders, bears, ants, serpents, wolves, dwarfs, elves, and human shadows bowed to me, awaiting my command. The command was simple, build me a castle. While they wouldn't be able to do it when I first turned them into shadows after they grew stronger and gained some more intelligence, a task like this would still be challenging, but they would do a great job. They instantly started to work, and I watched. The mage shadows were important for this job in creating materials. Becoming my shadows made them capable of using more magic and using it better. The first days were used to prepare the terrain by removing the trees before they started to build the castle itself, mixing creation magic together with the finest materials I could find. 3 months later, instead of the small forest, I could see a majestic masterpiece suspended in the sky. Just looking at it, I know it's a castle of a demon lord. The castle is adorned with grotesque carvings and dreadful stained glass windows that emit an eerie, mystical glow. In addition, the castle's exterior is made from black stone that absorbs light, casting an aura of eternal darkness. While on the inside, everything changes. The castle's interior is a blend of luxury and magic. Staircases spiral upwards, seemingly defying gravity, leading to spacious chambers. The walls are adorned with intricate murals depicting mythical creatures, epic battles, and enchanting landscapes, all from stories I read in my previous life. But my favorite room, aside from the throne room, is the library. The library has shelves that stretch to the ceiling and are lined with thousands of books. While it is still pretty empty, considering its size, I plan to fill every shelf in a few years. In the dining room was a dining table that stretched across the room's length. Crafted from rich, polished wood, it gleams under the soft glow of chandeliers suspended above. And finally, the throne room, a regal chamber that emanates power. The throne, positioned at the center of the room on an elevated dais, commanded attention. Crafted from the finest materials, it is a masterpiece with intricate carvings and embellishments. The dwarven and ant shadows worked well together, making everything look luxurious. I sat down on the throne and started thinking. I should probably spread information about me becoming a demon lord and the castle that appeared. If they think the new demon lord is weak, they would instantly organize an army of soldiers to remove me before I become a significant threat. A few rumors here and there, and it should gather the attention of people. Maybe I should name a few of my shadows now. Unlike gaining skills, naming someone won't permanently decrease my magical capacity, but it will take a few weeks, if not months, to regain them. But if the namer names someone too strong or names too many people without a long enough recovery time, there is a high chance that the energy expended in the naming process will never fully recover. After I become a true demon lord, my magical capacity and magical regeneration speed should increase so I would be able to name more of them at once. Oh, Mom's here. To make something like this in only 3 months is quite impressive, she said, looking around the throne room, but I like the style of the outside more. I nodded in agreement. My shadows did a good job. It's a good area also if you decide to make a kingdom, she said while I started leading us toward my office. I was thinking the same thing, but besides my shadows, I don't think I will have anyone here, I said while we walked through the hallway and saw a few shadows still working on the interior. I also plan to make the castle be able to fly around in the future. Mom observed them as we walked past them. How many of them do you have? She asked. I thought for a moment before answering, around 8,000. That number is mostly due to Feldera and his magi calls that spawn the monsters for me. Otherwise, I wouldn't even have 1,000 of them by now. Quite the interesting ability. Maybe the only trait of a vampire you got was the shadow-related abilities. She must as we arrived in the office and sat down. I haven't seen vampires have the ability to make living shadows, I said with a chuckle. That's true, she nodded but then looked unsure, but wouldn't creating a castle like this bring too much attention? She asked. Yes, that was my intention, I answered. I wanted to use it to make a name for myself, a demon lord living in a floating castle. Plus, if everything goes to plan, I will awaken as a true demon lord soon. She sighed. Of course, you would do something like this. Everything was so much easier when you were still a small kid. Kids grow up. I chuckled as she grew more and more annoyed, and then they become demon lords. She gave me a glare but didn't say anything. It was also when L, who I brought to the castle, brought tea for us. You should remember you are still one of the weakest demon lords, so don't cause too much trouble, she said and took a sip of the tea, and even if Guy is interested in you, don't try to make a big mess. Don't worry, I will keep the trouble to a minimum, I laughed before taking a sip of the tea. Elle always makes good tea, so I'm glad she will be staying here in the castle, and I wouldn't say I'm the weakest. After our small chat, Mom left due to having more work to do, leaving me with time to think of ways of informing people in the continent about the castle. Chapter 38, Naming. 2 months fly by in the blink of an eye when you are busy. During this time, I managed to slip some information and manipulate some things about the demon Lord Ashbourne and a demonic-looking castle that appeared on the continent. A few rumors here and there, and it spread like wildfire. Humans took stuff like demon lords very seriously and made it a top priority to defeat me before I grew too strong. If I didn't have my shadows spy on them and their decision, I wouldn't believe how they could actually believe I was that weak. My shadows also found out that the smaller kingdoms had joined forces to try and bring me down and should expect them in a few days. This is a good thing, as it would be enough for me to start the evolution. But before that, I wanted to name 2 of my shadows that will act as generals during the battle and guards during my evolution. Bringing forth my status, I looked at my magi calls. Names, Kale Valentine / Ashbourne. Titles, Adopted Prince, Troll of the Dungeon, Demon Lord. Level, 16, 1,406,650/1,638,400 EXP. Magi calls, 2,187,700. Stats. Strength, 1,391. Vitality, 1,191. Agility, 1,391. Intelligence, 1,091. Perception, 1,091. Remaining points, 541. Since I got accepted as a demon lord, the Ashbourne name appeared on my status together with the title. It's pretty interesting and got me wondering if I ever abandoned the name and if it would stay or disappear from the status screen. But that's not what I was looking at. The thing I looked at was my magi calls. That amount should be enough to name multiple shadows, but I will only name 2 for now. But before that, put 132 points in intelligence and perception, then put the rest of my points in strength. Intelligence, 1091-1223. Perception, 1091-1223. Strength, 1391-1658. Remaining points, 541-0. I brought forth 2 of my strongest shadows, a black serpent, and a black spider. Now then, what should I name them? I am horrible with names, and the first thing I thought of was to name them 1 and 2. Why not? From today, you will be Mio. I then turned to the serpent, and you will be Ceres. Instantly I felt magi calls leave my body and enter theirs, wrapping them in a cocoon of magi calls, starting their evolution. The process took a few minutes, and when the cocoon disappeared, it left 2 beautiful women kneeling in front of me. We thank you, our liege, for giving us names. We won't disappoint you, they said in unison in a tone full of admiration. Mio, who was the spider before, was a black-haired woman with black eyes and what looked like a kimono made out of shadows. Ceres, on the other hand, had blue snake-like eyes and 2 obsidian horns with black and blue hair, and her clothes were also made out of shadows. I was stunned momentarily, having not expected this outcome. I expected them to become stronger and maybe change their appearance, but not to this extent. And when something you didn't expect happens, ignore it and act like you knew it would happen. Can you still hide in my shadow? I asked. Of course, my liege, after evolving, we still kept our previous abilities, Mio said while kneeling. You both can stand up, I said, waiting until they did. You will have 2,000 shadows each and will prepare for the battle in a few days. I then sent the soldiers into their shadows. You can leave now. They left with a bow, and I sighed. Will all my shadows gain a human form when named? If I didn't feel that they were still my shadows, I would believe they were normal humans or demi-humans. But on the bright side, I will have someone other than Elle to talk to while I'm in the castle. Good thing there were extra guest rooms made here. Elle, prepare 2 rooms for them, I said to the maid who was standing close to me. It will be done, she said and, with a bow, went to prepare the rooms. Well, she at least didn't see anything weird with them gaining human form, or if she does, then she doesn't show it. It was unexpected, but it wasn't weird, having happened many times in this world. 4 days passed, and it was time for the massacre. Mio and Ceres have been observing and collecting information about the incoming army. My liege, the human army is about 5 hours away from the castle, Mio reported. According to Ceres, the army is composed of 15,000 soldiers from various kingdoms, 10,000 Templars, and 5,000 mages. So 30,000 in total is not bad. I quickly ensured the Templars had no one I knew and sighed in relief that there weren't. While my mom is technically the leader of the empire, she doesn't make all the decisions about where to send Templars and Holy Knights. Many of them were sent to other nations affiliated with the church as manpower to back up the church's immense influence, and these became the unlucky ones. While many would see my actions as immoral or cruel, I simply don't see a problem in using people I don't even know for my own benefit. Plus, I only gave them the information that there was a demon lord here, and they chose to act on it. If they didn't, then I would wait until someone else was stupid enough to do it. Let's go, I said, standing up from my throne and putting on the helmet. The helmet had 2 curved black horns, and everyone could see my glowing blue eyes through it. In addition, I wore jet black armor that glowed the same blue as my eyes. Are all preparations ready? I asked Mio, my voice altered by the helmet to sound darker. Yes, everything is ready, my liege, she replied, following behind me. Good, I want to make this memorable so that after I awaken as a true demon lord, they won't have to deal with people trying to attack me again. That would be annoying and interrupt my reading time. I sighed. I really wanted Rimuro to reincarnate faster so he could give me mangas and novels to read. Chapter 39, The Harvest Festival. As I saw the army arrive, I decided to welcome them by flying down. As I touched the ground with Mio behind me, about 100 meters separated me from the army. One soldier stepped forward. I'm General Scowlicious, surrender, and we will let you live. He shouted in a prideful tone, we have been informed of your strength, and you won't stand a chance against us. Skill issues. I muttered, confused if I had heard his name correctly. What parent would name their child skill issues? Thankfully they couldn't see my confusion due to the helmet. And what makes you so sure of yourself? I asked, with a tone of complete confidence. My voice enhanced due to magic, so I didn't need to shout. If I wanted, you all would be dead without me even taking a step from here. Don't think highly of yourself, he said, and I could hear a tint of anger. You exude an aura weaker than an advanced rank monster. Just because I don't blast my aura, he thinks I'm that weak. I know I spread the information I was a weaker demon lord, but still a demon lord. You see, I'm a nice person, so if you want to live another day, go back to where you came from and don't return, I said in an almost bored tone to spite him even more. I said surrender now, or you will be killed. 2 people can't defeat all of us. He shouted now in anger. Do you always lose your temper so quickly? I asked, amused. How can someone lose his temper so quickly? No, a better question would be how to let someone who loses his temper so quickly be a general. I will give you 10 seconds to leave before I start killing you, I said and started counting. 10. Now his face was completely red. Everyone attacks him now, he shouted in anger. He was probably a young knight from a noble family who got lucky to be promoted to a general and wanted to get recognition for killing a demon lord. 9. I continued to count. The army charged at him with a thunderous roar. 8. I could see magic circles forming in the army's back. 7. They were getting close as I stood still. 6. Different spells started flying towards me. 5. 4, 3, 2. The army was the spell a few meters in front of me, and the army not so long behind the spells. 1. The spells were now just a few centimeters from my face. 0. I became a blur of motion. My movements were fast and precise. Soldiers swung their swords and thrust their spears, only for me to parry or evade their attacks effortlessly. Launching myself into the air, I unleashed a shockwave that tore through the enemy ranks, sending soldiers flying in all directions. As I descended, the ground quaked beneath me, striking the earth with my sword that sparkled with blue electricity from being materialized from the inventory, creating a shockwave that rippled outward, disorienting and stunning the nearby soldiers. My shadows erupted from the ground. Me in the middle, Mio in the front, and Ceres in the back. The shadows surrounded them. The soldiers were being slaughtered by me and the shadows. With each fallen soldier, confusion and panic spread among the soldiers. Their formations crumbled, and chaos reigned. Some soldiers turned their weapons against their own allies in a desperate attempt to survive, probably thinking I would spare them if they turned against their own, while others blindly swung their swords, hoping to land a lucky blow. The ones that managed to land a fatal blow on the shadow instantly turned pale in fear as the shadow started to regenerate and kill them. My blows cleaved through their armor and flesh, sending arcs of blood spraying into the air. The ground around me became littered with fallen soldiers. With each passing moment, my movements seemed to grow even faster and more precise. I exploited weaknesses in the enemy's defense, finding gaps in their formation and exploiting them with deadly efficiency, just like Roy taught me. Eventually, the once mighty army stood on the brink of collapse. Fear and despair permeated the air as soldiers realized the futility of their struggle against this unstoppable force. Some tried to flee, trampling over their fallen comrades in a desperate bid for survival. Others, consumed by rage and desperation, launched themselves at me, but their futile attacks met with swift end. In the end, the battlefield lay littered with the broken bodies of the defeated army. I stood amidst the carnage. The echoes of battle were replaced by the eerie silence. I could feel my magi calls being doubled just from this fight, and I leveled up 2 times. Notice. The necessary nourishment for the requirement of evolution had been confirmed. The requirement had been met. The harvest festival will now begin. The voice of the world resounds in my mind, and a wave of sleepiness washes over me. Arise, I mumbled weakly, failing to stand by myself, but that didn't matter as all 30,000 soldiers became shadows and were all kneeling. Mio, Ceres, protect me while I go through the evolution. I gave them the order before using shadow exchange in my throne room before passing out. Notice. The transformation into a demon lord, the harvest festival, has begun. Body reconstruction has begun, transforming into a new species. Confirmed. Race, transforming into monarch, successful. All parameters have been greatly increased. Ability to freely change between material and spiritual body has been added. New intrinsic skills, infinite regeneration, universal shapeshift, material creation, ruler's authority, black heart, monarch's ambition, acquisition successful. New resistance skills, abnormal condition resistance, holy demonic attack resistance, natural effects nullification, physical attack resistance, pain resistance, spiritual attack nullification, acquisition successful. Notice: further evolution shall be attempted. Attempting to evolve unique skill, Shadow Lord. Unique skill, Shadow Lord has evolved into ultimate skill, Shadow Monarch, Ashborn. This completes the evolution. Guy Crimson POV. I smirked as I felt someone awaken as a true demon lord, and I knew who it was. To think he would do it half a year after becoming a demon lord. Misery invite Ashborn to the Ice Continent. Chapter 40, Ice Continent. I opened my eyes and felt different. More powerful? What was I doing before? I didn't have time to think more as Mio's and Ceres' voices interrupted my thoughts. My liege, we are happy to see you have awoken from your evolution. Came my confused answer before everything cleared, and I remembered. Ah yes, how long was I asleep for? I asked. A whole week, my liege, Mio answered. A whole week? But what about the daily quest? How am I still here? My mind was filled with questions, and I tried to open my status. Nothing happened. I panicked slightly, not seeing the screen I got used to seeing for the past 6 years. Status, I tried again, but nothing. I could still feel connected to all my shadows, so I wasn't panicking too much. I focused deeply on my soul, just like when I did the first night in this world, and felt something new, something more powerful and ultimate skill. During the evolution process, I was put into a deep slumber and wasn't able to hear what was happening, but I didn't expect to gain so many new skills. While most of them are resist-type skills, there are also a few intrinsic-type skills. Intrinsic skill, infinite regeneration. Infinite regeneration grants the user incredible regeneration properties far superior to ultra-speed regeneration and the self-regeneration I had before. Intrinsic skill, universal shapeshift allows the user to freely alter their bodily properties into whatever they desire, with hardly any effort. It is also incredibly useful in disguising one's appearance. Intrinsic skill, material creation similar to creation magic, it allows the user to create matter by using magi calls. It is usually used to create equipment like weapons or garments, the grade of which depends on the amount of magi calls used. Intrinsic skill, Monarch's ambition. Monarch's ambition could be described as a combination of hero's haki and demon lord's haki. Intrinsic skill, ruler's authority. Ruler's authority is a form of telekinesis, and at full power, this skill is almost like a black hole in potency. Intrinsic skill, black heart. Black heart is a skill that allows the user to generate magi calls infinitely and improve the vessel. Then finally, ultimate skill Shadow Monarch, Ashborn. Aside from getting a few extra sub-skills like Monarch's Domain and a few more, it hasn't changed much. But I can feel that all my shadows grew in strength. I looked at Mio and Ceres. They also looked different and stronger than before. I also noted that the blue in Ceres' hair changed to purple. Mio, Ceres, what happened when I went through the evolution? I asked. Your evolution time took more time than you expected, my liege. Everything has been taken care of after the battle, and you won't find a speck of those insects left, Mio reported. As you ordered, the humans observing everything from afar were allowed to leave, and word has spread through the continent about the demon Lord Ashborn wiping out a whole army of 30,000. So they classified you as a disaster class threat, Ceres added. I just hope Guy doesn't call me. Oh, and a maid from the demon Lord Guy Crimson arrived saying that he wants to meet you after you finish the evolution, Mio added. I should have stayed silent. Erg. I groaned. I knew this would happen but didn't expect it to be so quickly. Instead of going to him directly, I decided to try and get my status panel to show. It took me some time, but I got something similar but, at the same time, completely different. The subskill system in my unique skill changed into a status subskill now. ________. Magi calls, 43,566,000. Stats. Strength, 6,660 plus 18% equals 7,858. Vitality, 6,093 plus 18% equals 7,189. Agility, 6,399 plus 18% equals 7,550. Intelligence, 6,225 plus 18% equals 7,345. Perception, 6,225 plus 18% equals 7,345. _________. It didn't have levels, titles, names, or even points to spend. It just showed me my current statistics and nothing else. I could feel them slowly increasing due to Black Heart. My Magi Calls increased by 10 times if I factor in the Magi Calls that were used during the evolution to give me more skills and evolve an ultimate skill. I also noticed that the status displayed the 18% boost from my previous level, and I couldn't see a level stat. I was slightly disappointed in myself. If I knew the system would be gone after the evolution, I would have waited a couple of years and leveled up more before doing it. But what's done is done, and even the 18% boost is better than nothing. That's one less to think about, but now I'm not sure if I should keep the shadows in the forest and the barren lands when they don't give me EXP. I thought about it for a bit before deciding to leave them to gain more shadows, and they still should give me Magi Calls. Well, I shouldn't keep Guy waiting. I stood up from my throne and looked at Mio. Did he say how to get there? I asked, wondering if I should fly to the ice continent or not. She puffed her chest and proudly declared, of course. I had a shadow go there and wait until you woke up. Rule number 1 is always to act like you expected it. Good job, Mio. I knew you would do a great job. I then focused on a shadow located somewhere on the ice continent before using shadow exchange. Our scenery changed, and everything was made out of ice. I'm thankful for my new resistance skills, otherwise, I would probably freeze to death here. Oh, so here he comes, Guy's voice sounded, and I saw him sitting on an ice chair drinking what I assumed was purple wine. 5 months and you already became a true demon lord, ha ha ha. He laughed and motioned me to sit on another chair. He observed me the whole time, and I could see that he was more interested in me than before. Shadow Monarch Ashbourne, huh. He chuckled. I sat down with Mio standing beside me. I was only defending myself and my castle, I said, keeping my poker face. Did he sense my ultimate skill and see the name? Ha ha ha, I see, if you say so. He laughed. How about some wine? He asked and signaled Rain, the blue primordial, to bring me some. I took it and tasted it. It was the first time I had tried alcohol in both of my lives. I didn't count the time during the banquet when Mom was there. By the way, who is the lady beside you? Guy asked, interested. She feels familiar to the shadows you brought to the banquet. I momently forgot she was with me. Oh, this is Mio, one of my shadow generals. I answered, and one of my strongest shadows. Mio, huh. He looked at her. You got an interesting skill indeed. He sighed, such a shame I can't copy it. I'm grateful you can't. I will just give you a piece of advice. You won't get in trouble if you do anything on the territory you claimed, but try not to cause too much chaos. Guy said and looked at me. While we are demon lords, try to keep the destruction to a minimum. As long as they don't try and attack my castle, I won't do anything, I said and felt someone strong enter. She had a childlike appearance, no older than a girl in high school. She has fair skin, deep blue eyes, and long, glossy pearl white hair tied into twin tails reaching her waist. Oh, she looked at me with interest, and her eyes glowed gold for a second. So this is the new demon lord, quite young. She then looked at Guy. Guy, don't tell me you are into children now. He waved his hand nonchalantly. Veltsard, don't be like if he is old enough for being a demon lord then. You attacked me and forced me into becoming one. I cut in. Plus, I'm not into men, I added. Guy, we need to talk about your preference. She then pointed at me. That is too young. Guy was about to say something, but she cut him before he said a single word. And don't say age is just a number. I just looked at them, not knowing what to say. After she was done, scolding? She turned to me. I haven't introduced myself yet. I'm Veltsard, the White-Ice Dragon. Ashbourne, the Shadow Monarch. I introduced myself with my new title, but back to why you called me here, Guy. I don't think it was only due to wiping out a small army. Haha. He chuckled. Do I need a reason to call you here? I could think of many other people you could call here instead of a fresh demon lord. I replied. As I said, I find you interesting. He chuckled. So I don't see a reason why not to invite you here. Dash.